2. Borough. Queen Calixta wondered to herself what things must be like on the other side of the universe. For centuries now there had been no new worlds to conquer, and though Queen Calixta was as adept as any of her forebears in the art of war, she knew that she did not yet have the experience of her parents and grandparents. This made her very angry. Queen Calixta spent a lot of her time angry at the incompetence of her underlings, who were all imported from inferior races and who couldn't measure up to her own brilliance. Angry at the fate of being the first Agrosian ruler to have nothing new to conquer. Angry that she had been denied her birthright as a great warrior. Angry that she had been born on a world that was already so perfect that there was precious little ruling to actually do. Sometimes she seethed, sometimes she exploded, but mostly Queen Calixta was jumping, living on edge and spoiling for a fight that never came. Though she didn't want to admit as such to her underlings, she was also secretly afraid. There was such a weight on her regal shoulders, an expectation that as the only surviving member of the greatest species in the Agrosian kingdom, and the offspring of the warriors who had conquered dozens of planets as if they were nothing, her followers sometimes expected too much. More than anything else, it was fear that made Queen Calixta angry, her self-doubt drip-feeding into her subconsciousness at every moment. Sometimes she yearned to take a break, to put her regal feet up and do something stupid and spontaneous, but her followers were always looking up to her and expecting her to be her usual scary self. She was afraid of letting them down. Secretly too, she worried about this new race of which she only knew what had been written on the side of a rocket, and Queen Calixta learned from experience never to trust what was written on a rocket. Maybe it was out of date, and this alien race were champion warriors by now. It was awfully rusty. Maybe they would have allies or close ties with fierce neighbours. How would she fare against these new unseen foes? What would they look like with their local armour on? Would they be more like the other smaller species that had been conquered, or giants taller than herself? What weapons would these unknown creatures have? Were they like her own rabble army, made up of multiple species who always clashed or squabbled amongst themselves? Or would they be the disciplined unit she always dreamed of having, working together in true cooperation? Would they be pathetic isolationist pacifists like some of the Agrosian species who have been conquered? Or would they be fiercer and angrier even than her? Queen Calixta gulped a little at the prospect, fear ebbing through her skull until the throbbing nearly knocked her crown clear off. One thing was for sure though, she wouldn't let anyone guess just how scared she was. She would take off to the part of space laid out for her on the other side of the shuttle and do what her ancestors had always done against the scary and unknown, fight with everything she had. Queen Calixta suddenly found herself smiling. Yes, that was it. She would make these aliens pay, and as long as she acted tough, what could possibly go wrong? The only thing that ever came close to defeating her ruling class in the past had been unity, and Queen Calixta knew well what a rarity that was in any part of the universe. What do you think? I asked Airglow as she held the printout from the Insta-Publish device in Decreeta's media room. I hear they're going to publish it on one of the other worlds. I'm not sure which one. She looked it up and down quickly.
Well, you've got a lot of salient points across, I suppose. Well, I didn't think there was nearly enough about me in it. When can I ever go? I have a few things to get off my chest, and I am First Lady after all. I'm the most important person here.
There was a pause.
Maybe along with you?
She added to me more sweetly. You can talk next if you want to, I said, taken aback at how eager she was. It was partly her charisma on Mars that had won me my election, of that I was sure, though I still wasn't yet quite sure how that would play on an intergalactic stage. I'm hoping that everyone here will begin to be interviewed before long.
Oh, good,
Airglow continued, asking the Clandesprod how long it would take till the results were published. Instantaneously here, said Lawrence. There's not even a way of editing it. Maybe there's a few days before it makes the intergalactic press, however.
Right,
said Airglow.
No peeking until it's in at least one of the big newspapers, though. I want it to be a surprise.
As Airglow walked into the room, my pleading eyes must have caught Lawrence's. I'm sure it will be fine, he said. After all, you've only been here a few days. What could she possibly say that would get her or you into trouble? You don't know Airglow, I sighed. No, grinned Lawrence. That's precisely why I'm interviewing her. Wish me luck.
Inputs are universal entry AB544936448. Resident Eleron. Mars Universal Systems Key Code Eleron. Headline: New Agenda Brexit plus right to me. Retrieved from the Universal Records Office.
All questions answered, and my staff all getting used to their new employment. Eglo went to have a look at our new living space upstairs, and I officially moved into my new office. Oh dear. Half of it was filled with overspilled Mechion research, while most of the other half was filled with the Dewsbury Giants' lunch leftovers. I squeezed myself into the tiny gap in the middle, and sighed again. As even 2 floors down I could hear Eglo having histrionics from here as she saw our bedroom for the first time. This was going to be a really long day. Horace entered, looking concerned.
I have a few things I need to discuss with you urgently, Intergalactic President.
Not a mutiny already, I asked. I pleaded with everyone to give it a few days to see how they felt. Horace smiled.
No, I think most people are happy about their new jobs. All of them except the Cavalosian legal writer who kept hers, ironically. She always wanted to work in the Secret Service.
Oh, I said. I guess that would be one way of ensuring nobody would know what we were talking about. The only problem is we wouldn't know what she was talking about either. Maybe she could help out at weekends or something.
Maybe. There are 3 things I've come to see you about really soon. Here's the first.
So saying, Horace got out a large box and handed it to me. It was marked, rather ominously, I thought, with the phrase, Box 1 of 1634573936454784848464 on the side. I looked in, and it was full of parchments and digital holograms of all colours and sizes and types, all addressed to me. What's all this? I asked.
Letters to you, sir. Actually sent physically rather than over the Universal, just like the olden days. I believe you mentioned in one of your speeches that you wanted to represent the average citizen of the universe and make them feel that they could call on you as a friend. The dangerous business in politics, that, sir. Never let the people think they are your friend. Instead, let them see you as their boss. It wouldn't do for them to think that politics was an easy job anyone could do after all, or we'd all be out of work.
I disagreed with that last comment so much I thought about starting an argument, but decided to save it for another day. Instead I asked, what have they written to me about exactly?
Anything. Everything. Complaints that taxes are too high. Concern that taxes are too low. Frightened messages about what might happen to them or their loved ones in the future. Jealousy of other planets. Boasts about their own. Despair at losing jobs, or houses, or floors, or privileged status, or status symbols, or industries, or even pet algebras. Hope over better futures and incomes and schooling and freedom. Lots and lots and lots of letters about equality, that we should have more of it, that we haven't had enough of it. But you are giving it to the wrong people, and some people deserve equality more than others. Sympathy on how hard your job must be. Insults and how easy you have it. Letters worry that you won't like the weather on a planet that still hasn't been terraformed yet. Insults, compliments, please, thank yous, jokes, crossword puzzle. Even a few recipes and Dewsbury Giants sent you, it's all here.
I'll never be able to answer all these, I said.
Well,
Said Horace.
maybe you should have thought of that before you started connecting to people's hearts, especially on Mechion 5 where we don't have any. Stick to their brains, that's where their voting decisions are made. Our Mrasianbrat will never be the same again after lugging all this lot on his shuttle day after day.
I shall start on it immediately, I replied. What else did you have to tell me? Horace got a large needle out of the box and pressed it up against my skin. Wait, what's all this? I said, as Horace wirelessly injected something into my left wing. I heard rumours that most of the Belobrat officials were on drugs, but that doesn't mean I have to be.
It's a foot sergeant, all to aid the idea of government transparency, sir.
A foot what? I don't need a foot bath. I meant to have claws. Plus, I've already told you, no need for this, sir. We're partners in this job.
All right, sir, President, sir. I remember that, sir. It's all to do with government transparency, sir. This way all your actions and thoughts will be available for any citizen of the 10 planets to view on using the Universal, to be backdated to the day before your arrival on this planet, sir. So I hope you didn't think any unpleasant thoughts.
Oh, I'm thinking unpleasant thoughts right now, believe me, I said. Why are you doing this exactly? I'm a proud Mrasianart. I've never lied in my life. I'm not about to start now I'm in the most important job in the universe.
It's to cut down on the corruption of the Belobrat, sir.
Oh, I said. Are they chipped already, I take it?
No, sir.
Deadpanned Horace.
They already corrupted the system, so they wouldn't have to take this chip. But everyone else who haven't corrupted the system yet will have to. And when it's time for you to leave office, it will automatically gather all your thoughts and actions into book form as your autobiography, sir. It's a very useful device, really.
And the third thing? I went, strubbing my wing. I hope it's going to be less time-consuming than the first, and less painful than the second.
Maybe, maybe not, sir. That's not for the likes of me to say. This has arrived for you, marked urgent.
I took it from him. It's dated several hours ago, I said. It also looked as if it had been steamed open, but I wasn't sure enough to say anything out loud. I knew better than to start a diplomatic incident without proof.
Well,
said Horace with the patience of someone dealing with another who is a bit slow on the uptake.
that's why I'm giving it to you now. If it hadn't been marked urgent, I would have left it till tomorrow.
I sighed for what seemed the upteenth time that day and put out my wing to read it.
Oh, no, sir. In order to circumvent any accusations of bribery, I have to read all correspondence up to you, sir.
I couldn't believe my ears. What, everything? All those boxes?
Oh, yes, sir. So be careful what people write to you.
Be careful? But how will I know what they're going to write to me? I mean, I'm the Intergalactic President. I'm sure to get all sorts of official correspondence.
If you say so, sir. Shall I read it out to you now? Yes, sir. There you are, you see, it's not just me who insists on calling you sir, is it, sir? This is a missive from her, informing you that due to our doubts over the way that the universe is now being governed, in a move it has nothing to do with our appalling result of the Intergalactic Peace vote, gosh no. Therefore, forthwith, be seeking to distance itself from the Intergalactic Peace Treaties altogether. They will no longer meet for intergalactic trade deals, nor pay the startling expensive bill of £42 a year.
Oh no, those stupid apes! I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Language, sir? You are connected to the facade, after all.
Oops, I forgot. Those humans of questionable action. That's not speciesist, by the way, before anyone objects. I am half human, after all. Any more?
Well, in short, they've refused to send Earth delegates to us after coming last and second to last in the elections. They've taken a vote on whether to stay as part of our peace alliance or go their separate ways. Apparently the isolationists have won their last global election, and they're asking how soon their relationship with us could be resolved.
I was beside myself with rage by now. But that's ridiculous. You can't just suddenly ignore the rest of the universe. What about trade? What if they get threatened by somebody? Legal agreements that already exist. What about their fishing trade deals with the Dewsbury Giants? The Camalosians will have a field day trying to sort all that out. Horace droned on.
With respect, I think there are a few bigger problems than that, sir. The humans spend most of their money on fossil fuels from the dying out. Will they all starve or freeze to death without the help of the rest of the universe, sir?
That's a thought. Maybe with that in mind, I could persuade them to stay.
Well, the document goes on to say that they made everything they'll ever need once so they can do it again. Which might be true in time, but most certainly isn't true now.
I sighed loudly. With even more respect, I doubt they'll feel like that with the Mechions take the long life technology back from them, or the shuttle buses. What about the clandestine translator circuits? They'll understand a word any other species has to say to them.
They say that none of the other 9 species are likely to threaten us if our peace organisations can exist, and that they can renegotiate any trade deal they like,
said Horace, continuing to read through the report. Good luck with that without translator circuits. It will take them a month before we worked out the Camalosians have said hello. I still have trouble understanding them even with the translator circuits. Anything else?
Only waffle,
said Horace.
You wouldn't like it. Nothing important.
Let me see that, I said, snatching the document out of his wings. The comprehensive free trade deal? We've taken back control of our destiny? A new quota on fishing rights with the Belobrat? We refused a deal with a president who's part Mrasianart and biased against us? Who writes this rubbish? I'm part human too, for crying out loud.
Yes, but you've never been to Earth, sir. I think the humans feel a slight bias against us from the rest of the universe due to past events.
Well, perhaps I ought to go someday, I mused. To my surprise, Horace looked suddenly thrilled at this.
Oh, yes, sir. I will go sooner rather than later to come to that. While there's still half of the IPO, I shall make the arrangement straight away, sir.
I was a little overcome at this. Hang on, what about everything here? I'm the Intergalactic President. I can't just up and leave after I've just taken up the job. I have so many policies I want to discuss with you all and see if I can get into law, but nobody seems to be listening to what I want to do at all.
Oh, but sir,
said Horace, putting on his sudden falling face, which drove me mad.
you've done such a good job here in your first, 7 hours? I think you can safely leave things up to us for a while.
I decided it was best to tackle this head on. Look here, Horace, I'm not a Belobrat in my job to be flattered. I've barely done a day's work and achieved almost nothing.
That's very true, sir,
drawled Horace, in a tone that made me want to throttle him. And I can't possibly traipse off and leave you all to your own devices. It wouldn't be right. Horace continued his smug grin at me.
Oh, it's all perfectly all right, sir. The Belobrats did it all the time. Should I pack your bags now, sir? Only the tiny diplomatic shuttle is available, so it might take you a bit longer to travel to Earth, but that's quite all right, sir. You can take the scenic route. I hear Alpha Centauri's quite nice this time of year if you want to stop off along the way.
My Mrasianart intuition working overtime, I furrowed my suddenly human eyebrows at him. What exactly is going on, Horace? I am here to work. If you're not up to working, then feel free to take the shuttle on the scenic route on my behalf and let me work back here.
Oh, no, sir,
Horace said, his eyes wide in surprise.
I couldn't possibly. I mean, you're the president, not me, sir. It has to be you that goes. And I would go now, right away. I mean, I would go myself and leave you here, but between you and me, I don't cope well with alien climates. I hear they have rain on Earth, quite often too. Our feathers aren't built for getting wet.
Was my response. And if I did go, on my own apparently, who would I see?
Well, that's the odd thing about Earth. We're the only planet that still insists on seeing things in terms of countries rather than planets. Boris Johnson is the one who's claimed to be the unelected president in charge of Earth, but it's only a tiny boxy country she's in charge of, really. She took over yesterday, apparently, as part of a deal of being voted top Earthling in an intergalactic poll, even though she was still beaten by every other species. She's descended from another Earth leader from generations ago, apparently, who was incredibly corrupt and evil.
Oh, yes, I remember reading about him, I said, eager to draw on my knowledge and prove I didn't need to rely on the Universal. He declared himself dictator and ruled for 60 years. It was a terrible end, though. He began to believe his own lies and thought he was invincible and went a bit mad, proclaimed himself the king of the world. He got stuck on a zip wire that he'd had built that led straight into the sun. Typical Earth extravagance. They could have spent all that money on their poor and needy.
What shall I say you want to see Doris about, if you don't mind me asking, sir?
Well, the fact that you can't just sign out of a peace treaty for a start. The Camelosian lawyers who worked for us last generation made sure of that. I want to hear from her, though, why Earth is so desperate to break away from us, and what we can do to solve their concerns.
Oh,
said Horace.
You mean you're going to force them to stay?
Well, no, I sighed, feeling one of my headaches coming on. I guess if the planet really wants to leave, we have no right to stop them. I just want to make sure that they really know what they're letting themselves in for, cutting themselves off from the rest of the universe. I just hope in the meantime that nothing happens out of the ordinary that gets them into trouble, like, I don't know, some mass invasion by a new alien race or something, or will come to their senses when they see what life is like without our protection.
I really hope so,
said Horace.
We don't want any more bad publicity.
I leaned back in my chair, feeling a full-on migraine coming on. What do you mean more?
The newspaper columns are back about your first day in office. They aren't good.
I pushed my chair back to the point and nearly fell off it. Well, I've only been in the job a few hours. What do they expect me to achieve? I need 100 days at least before people start chuntering. That's the traditional Earth and Mrasianart time.
Well, we do say it's early days yet, to be fair, sir. You haven't ended any wars, started any new trade deals, or visited any alien planets yet. And that's what you were elected to do. The universe is beginning to get a bit edgy about the lack of work, sir.
I put my head in my wings and leant forward onto my desk, which tipped over, spewing Mechion research and half-eaten buns across the room. It could at least have given me time to clear my room first. Sometimes I wonder if people realise what a hard job maintaining peace is, on my planet, never mind the whole universe.
No one cares about peace anymore, sadly,
said Horace. What do you mean nobody cares anymore? I replied, astonished. Surely everybody wants to live in peace.
Oh yes, very much so. We've had peace for so long, I think people have stopped caring. Everyone secretly fancies just a dash of war to liven things up a bit.
Liven things up a bit? But, for goodness sake, we can't have half the universe dying in a war, because that's what would happen.
Well, if you put it like that, everyone would prefer peace, of course, but it's become a bit of a bother. It's always seen as something the other planet should be getting on with, not something to annoy whichever planet you ask about, sir.
A bit of a bother, I repeated. Peace doesn't just magically fall out of the sky. It needs work, lots of work, all the blooming time. It needs to change and adapt and grow as the species and their understandings of each other do.
That's as may be, sir. As long as it's going on in the background, and nobody has to really care much about it, that's just fine with most people, sir.
I sighed. People should care. We should all work very hard at it. It should be a matter of life and death, because it is.
That reminds me, sir,
Said Horace.
I remember what you said earlier, but, well, would you mind if I took part of next week off? I've been a bit overworked here and want to be at my best for you. In fact, taking off most of the next month would be brilliant. Husband, a word,
said Aglo when I walked up to our quarters after asking Horace to show me the way. Even before my wife had finished speaking, I could tell what the problem was. Our bedroom was covered from floor to ceiling with big ugly boxes and folders, all relating to the Mechion's collection of archives. One wall of our bedroom was missing, and more snow and ice had piled up in the corner, fighting for attention with a giant fire on the other, into which my wife was feeding documents. "You can't do that," I said in a panic. "Those are classified files."
Well,
Sniffed Aglo.
they're now so classified nobody else will ever be able to read them. Bob gave them to me. He said he didn't need them anymore. I had to use something, Eleron. I'm trying to run a home here. It's freezing. I can feel the circulation being cut off in at least one of my heads.
"I know," I said desperately, "and these things shouldn't be here. I'm sorry. But just put up with it for a night, and I'll see what I can do." My wife shook her head.
You need to fix this, Eleron. You're the president. I'm first lady. If you don't fix it, then I'll fix you.
"What do you mean?" I asked helplessly. "I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can really do. I didn't arrange the accommodation. I thought it would be all ready by the time we got here." Aglo stared me straight in the eyes 3 times over, as she often did when upset.
Then maybe we need a new president. One who's more assertive and strong. Maybe what the universe needs isn't someone skulking around afraid of his own shadow and subordinates, but someone who knows what they're doing. Maybe I married the wrong presidential candidate and I should have gone for that nice smart Belobrat instead. You should be doing things and ordering people about and threatening them if they don't do something on time. Especially when it's for me.
"No," I said, "that's only part of a president's job. His other job is to listen to what people have to say and problem solve where he can and help the universe by doing what will help most of the people most of the time. The universe knows how to run itself perfectly fine without my help by and large. It's when it can't it needs my intervention, and at the moment the universe is fine. It's only our accommodation here that isn't, and that's small fry by comparison. I'm not going to be the sort of president that lets shoutier, angrier, louder voices win. Nevertheless, I will tell Horace this isn't good enough and ask him to get on with it because this room is freezing."
Good,
replied Aglo.
See what you do. Now, isn't there some work you should be doing?
Dejectedly, I walked downstairs again to my office. Oh dear. I knew Aglo had a point, and I'd always known things were going to be hard. I'd really hoped that we could conquer these problems by fighting together, the way we always had, not fighting each other. After all, my election campaign had been that the universe was stronger together. Surely if I preach that on such a huge scale, then unity should be possible at home too. Was Aglo just venting, or did she really mean her underlying threat?
Outside, Universal Entry AB544936496. Keyword Mars Universal Systems Key Code President Eleron. Headline As Discussant. Tentative trade talks begin. Retrieved from the Universal Records Office.
It was a few days later. I wouldn't say I had settled in exactly, but at least was settling and settled. My staff did their jobs, if grumpily, and I was beginning to get things done, if slowly, while Aglo was coming to terms with a new life, if bumpily. I had nothing much else to do, and far too much time to spend on open-ended thinking, so I did the only thing that ever seemed to help me relax and think, and stuck some music on my MP90 in my office. All Mrasianart seemed to really take to one art form or another, and mine was music. Whenever things were going badly, I drew inspiration from it like a well, submersing myself in it to remind myself of everything that made me join the IPO and why I was here, trying to make the universe a better place, so far from home. I stuck some Chuck Berry, a 20th century Earth musician, on my MP90 player and went back to work, instantly feeling better as I listened to tune out of my own life and into another briefly, and wondered what these Earthlings might have thought about the work being played on another world so many centuries after their death. I hope they would have felt proud, and that it would have made sense to them that we were living in a new age with so many new life forms to learn from and so many chances to grow. Just as I was submersed in the guitar licks that sounded like ringing a bell, in walked Horace.
"What a noise!"
He said, scowling.
"Turn that thing off, Eleron."
"Oh," I said, my face falling. "Don't you like it? Chuck Berry's one of the greatest things the Earth ever invented. It really helps remind me why we're here and my vision for peace in the universe." The song clicked on to one about sweet 16-year-old Earthlings and another about riding a Galumphary prototype really fast. "Well, maybe not these ones specifically," I admitted, shamefaced, "but just think about all the great peace songs that were inspired by songs like these. Without Chuck Berry, Earth wouldn't have had much culture or art at all, and the planet might not have been saved in the Endurance Wars."
"Why would you want to chuck berries at anyone?"
asked Horace, confused.
"We can get people to do that sort of thing for you, President. Not that I think chucking anything is a good idea in a peace organisation."
"Oh," I said, laughing, "no, he's an Earthling who helped shape rock and roll. Do you know, right at this very minute, his music is travelling to a new star system. The Earthling stuck one of his records on the side of a shuttle and sent it off into space."
"What an odd thing to do,"
said Horace.
"An e-card will be friendlier. What if we don't have the right equipment to play it on?"
"Oh, I think it's nice," I replied. "It's kind of like an introductory letter, only music says more about a planet and its people than any amount of writing could." Horace stared.
"That sounds like too much effort to me. Turn that thing off and let's go back to work."
So we did. We spent most of the rest of the day in deep discussion concerning a meeting about drawing up new boundaries regarding an existing shopping planet as Agrosians that was perched right on the boundaries between solar systems. We're traditionally in a Camalosian province. It was mostly Mrsaanbrat shoppers who visited there, and over decades of decay now had been mostly rebuilt by Mrsaanbrat's hands. Well, not that they have any hands, but you take my meaning. Camalosa had tied the IPO up in knots over this issue for years now. From what I gathered from the paperwork, the Belobrats had largely put it to the back of the pile every time it came up. Well, no more. It wasn't like anything else important was coming my way yet. This was the sort of thing the IPO should be doing, and I had decided that I should be in charge of brokering peace between the two planets if I could. Personally, I thought that having a mutual shopping zone that both planets controlled and where the net profit was split as evenly as was comfortable was a way to go. Either that or having the shopkeepers pay ground rent and then keep every part of the profit that was left over, instead of paying everything over to the Camalosians the way they did now. Horace wasn't too sure, though.
"Boundaries tend to be there for a reason,"
he said when I asked him why he wanted to leave well alone. "But boundaries change," I said. "As our universe becomes gradually more, well, universal, we're going to mix more and more with each other. Issues like this are sure to keep cropping up all the time. Better for us that we set a precedent now, remind everyone that just because you were born near to a patch of good land, that's not the same as living there, but you have no right to control it. After all, nobody truly owns resources that are older than our lifespans. We're just the temporary caretakers of them." Horace coughed.
"But that world's always been part of the Camalosian solar system."
"Maybe," I said, warming up to my subject, having read up about it as best I could on the spotty universal service out here in Decreeta that involved me dangling out of my bedroom window by my tail. "But technically, it's nearer Mrsaanbrat. I really don't see what harm can come from having both species making money from the planet. After all, there's plenty to go round. Also, the Camalosians don't really shop there anymore anyway, and if we keep pushing the Mrsaanbrats out, then they won't be making any money in the first place."
Camalosians have always called it part of their empire, though. If they lose it, then it will take a lot of updating the paperwork.
"Perhaps," I said, "but they like paperwork. It's their idea of fun. Besides, geographically, they can still call it part of their empire if they want to. They'll make a lot of money from it too under our new plan. We just won't be taking all the profits anymore, but sharing it."
That's a very simplistic view, sir,
said Horace coldly.
You're letting the grunts walk all over you with their sob stories when the Calixtians have been getting away with things for so long. It's their own fault for not pushing the point earlier. Better to let things muddle on as they are, if you ask me.
I put down my papers. Then what's the point of us, Horace? We live in an ever-changing universe where things are different every day. We have to change with the times too, or we're just part of the old guard, set in our ways, stopping the universe from doing what it does naturally, expanding and evolving. I say the grubs have a legitimate concern if they do all the work and get none of the money. The last time I looked, Camalozia wasn't poor, and they'll still get something. There's enough profit to go around. Horace snorted.
I think the idea of business is to make as much profit as is possible, sir.
Well then, I said, leaning back in my chair, a good job we aren't businessmen then, eh? We're more intergalactic lawyers, really, keeping things as fair as possible and putting clear boundaries together. The Camalosians should appreciate that analogy. Horace put down his graphite stick, smiled at me, and shrugged.
Oh well, best not to get too worked up about things. I suspect this dispute will be here long after you and I are gone.
Very probably, I grinned back, but at least we can say that we tried to solve them. Sometimes that's enough. Horace looked off into the middle distance, and I decided this was a good time to ask him something I'd been dying to know since I'd arrived on Decreeta. Horace, why did you get into politics? I mean, you've told me a few times now that you don't believe you can ever change anything, so why try it? He smiled at me.
Because old Hobbit asked, somebody had to care about the future, or it would have been absolute chaos. I figured that someone might as well be me. It's all a bit of a learning curve too. I'm still bewildered by the way the universe works sometimes. I'd love to know more about why.
I laughed back. Me too. I don't know why the universe behaves the way it does either. I'm supposed to be the one in charge of it. I wonder. However, before we could get any further, we were disturbed by my office door slamming open. Egla was at a loose end. She'd worked on, or so she said, most of the interiors of our new apartment, but I must admit that I hadn't noticed too many differences. Most things were just where the Mrasianbrat had left them, and what I took to be a few curious exploratory splodges on the wall turned out to be the finished design. So she found her way to my office and sat preening herself in the mirror and smiling at what she saw every so often. How I hated that mirror. It always seemed to be looking back at me, distorting my view so that instead of a withered politician who was always sparking, I saw a tired and weary Humrasianart looking back instead. Egla seemed to love hers though, and would have spent all day in front of it if she could.
Not yet,
she said when I tried to talk to her.
I really need to take this selfie for Instapat. Do you think it looks better if all three heads are pouting, or just one?
I confess I'm not sure. Looks were never my strong point, and Egla always looked good to me whatever she was doing.
One other thing,
Egla asked, still posing in a mirror.
I've been meaning to ask, do I lean to the left or the right?
Good, I think, something I can answer. The left, I say enthusiastically, though traditionally Belobrats lean to the right. On the left we have socialism and equality, in the early days of communism when it actually worked, and...
Oh,
she said, moving round in her dress.
Because I would say I lean towards the right. My third head is slightly heavier than the others.
Wait, I say, confused. Do you mean leaning politically or biologically? Eglo frowned.
Biologically, of course. I haven't the slightest interest in politics, only in parties. And not political parties either before you start.
I opened and shut my mouth. But isn't politics why we're here? Eglo shrugs in an annoying way she seems to have picked up from Horace.
Maybe, but now that I've made it here, I don't actually care too much. President darling,
she said in a loud voice,
do you think there's a way to find space in your schedule to go shopping at the new precinct on Mars? It's about time I had a new dress.
Yes, I expect so, I said, pleased that my wife was suddenly in a better mood. I'm not sure when, but I'm looking forward to travelling to as many places as I can once we're fully set up here. I'll gladly take you dress shopping in all of them eventually. Eglo smiled.
The expense account is a little heavy. Can I use your Eurasian Express card?
Okay, I said.
How about if I buy a few gifts for people back home too?
Fine.
Oh, about big dinner you wanted me to host? I'm afraid I'm going to have to cancel. I know I'm letting you down, but, well, these things happen, don't they?
Oh, I said, looking up from my work. That's a shame. Is everything all right?
Oh, fine,
She said.
I just don't feel like having strangers in our house, that's all. Not yet.
Oh, very well, I said. That's a pity, though. I know Mr. and Mrs. Mechansons were looking forward to seeing you. They'll probably tell me we're being illogical in cancelling. We could have a Billy Belobrat family around for dinner, though they're free. Or we could go see the Mechansons when there's a break in work here. I nodded absent-mindedly to my wife. Or anywhere.
What a good idea,
said Horace.
Anywhere else you fancy going?
Eglo shrugged. Nowhere. Oh well. There was a pause while I went back to my work.
Eleron, will I be able to buy a new coat? I'm not very keen on this one. The glad to hide it faux fur is much nicer than Mrasianbrat sort.
Yes, that's fine, I said. We'll talk over the budget later. It's not more than 3 digits, is it? I think we're near our limit.
Well, I've picked out the one I want now.
My wife said.
It's already on order, and it's 4, I think.
She thought to herself again.
Or is it 5? I forget.
You didn't ask me first, I said.
You were busy.
She shrugged. I went back to my work.
Eleron,
Grow began again.
I may in fact have used up our expense account already.
I looked up from my work, puzzled. All of it? With there enough credits in there, weren't there?
Oh, yes.
She said.
It was all most generous. I just happen to have used it up already, that's all. You don't buy and do, darling.
Oh, well, it was only money, I thought. The good Mrasianart knew not to put much store in money. If it kept my wife happy, then so be it. I guess not, I said hesitantly, at which point Agro threw her arms around me and hugged me.
Good,
She said.
See you later. Make sure you get away on time.
I'll try to, I said, returning to work.
Oh,
Aglo replied, pausing in the doorway.
I'm never your priority these days. You're smart, you'll figure it out. Remember, don't be late now. Or else.
Horace looked concerned at me. Sorry, I continued. She's still getting used to being here and looking for her own routine. She won't bother us quite so often once she settles in. My companion raised a vice-presidential eyebrow.
I'm not sure if Aglo is actually the problem. You really do have issues with putting down boundaries, don't you, sir? It's not just between planets.
Puzzled, I looked up. How do you mean?
Your whole manifesto is about fairness and respect to all countries and not letting any one of them get away with gaining an advantage. You don't seem to be awfully good at making sure it doesn't happen in your own home. You've both only been here a few days, and already Aglo seems to have spent all the money that you yourself have earned. You accept most of her suggestions without questioning, most has had no real political training, and every time she demands your time, you give it freely, sir. She almost always insults the staff, is rude to any of the delegates who visit or call from the Universal, unless they're at least by the Royals, and insists on having us cater to her every whim, over and above any essential work we have to do. My colleagues are getting quite disturbed by it. We call her Princess Brat. Oh, not to her faces, you'll be pleased to hear. They're all still professionals. Well, except for that unfortunate incident at the last party involving Rebecca on the photocopier and 42 bottles of complimentary champagne from Bellosphere.
I'm sorry, I said. I hadn't realised things were that bad. I'll have a word with her.
You don't mind me saying so,
replied Horace quickly.
You've had several words with her. She doesn't seem to listen to you, or have any respect for you. Some of the delegates are beginning to wonder which of you is a president, and which of you they actually elected.
I shook my head. You don't know what she's like yet. Some of her ideas are really good. I need her, Horace. Her confidence and charisma is everything I don't have. Look, just give her a little rope, and then she won't hang me. That's the system that's always worked out best for us. Horace looked me straight in the eyes and said,
You know best, sir.
In the exact same way that told me he didn't think I knew best at all.
And now, if you don't mind, I really have to clock off early.
All right, I said. If you have to, I won't stop you.
There you go again,
Horace said, pausing in the doorway.
You know what my business hours are, but you never make me keep to them.
I put my papers down. But you just said you had to go. That's a good enough reason for me. I trust you. Horace sighed and turned to leave the room, saying on his way out,
I know, sir. And one day that trust is going to get you into trouble.
Not quite sure what he meant. I shook my head and went back to my work.
Futsal, Universal Entry, ME 544-936-4960. Borough's Universal Systems Key Code, President Eleron. Headline, Proposal, New Peace Fountain Sculpture, retrieved from a Universal Records Office.
I had also got to grips with my office and the fascinating stationery system my Belobrat predecessors had set up. Though every piece of paper I signed was a physical copy, designed to self-destruct or get lost if someone wanted them to, so I supposed. Sweeping new regulations promoting transparency meant that a copy of them was instantly taken via a Mechion technological gadget, so that it would be simultaneously whisked into the ether and placed in the universal somewhere. It was quite unnerving at first, though I slowly got used to it. I spent the time I wasn't dealing with trade deals or visiting dignitaries perfecting a new idea that had been a key part of my induction, that of creating a new fountain to go in the centre of every planet that would celebrate the breadth and variety of life in our universe and make us feel more like a community. It was Auntie C who had given me the idea after telling me how she so wanted to travel around the universe visiting all the statues of Enwyn and Lizzie that had been built to celebrate the events of Endurance. I had also been influenced by the statue of my mum and dad that had been built back home on Mars and had seemed to so inspire our own local area. What I really wanted, though, was for a sculptor from every planet to make their own version of a 10-figure statue out of local materials rather than have an identikit one, so that every planet would have its own unique variation on our themes of peace and community. I knew that this was one of my simpler demands, as well as one of the more immediately visible ones, and wanted to get it done quickly, so that the universe would have a concrete sign of what I wanted to achieve with my presidency. Thankfully, the quarries on most planets have been more than happy to send us the right sort of long-lasting materials cheap, in return for an official thank you on the Universal, and all that had taken was me signing off on a last lot of papers. Against all odds, all the planets had agreed to the idea, no doubt as they were getting them more or less for free, with the obvious exception of Earth, so that even before the ink had dried on my copy of the documents, I had passed my first bill, and the universe had gained 9 new 10-foot statues. I smiled to think that sculptors around the universe were already drawing up plans to submit to me. After an hour or 3 of this, I was rather keen to step away from my desk for a while, and I went to see how the cabinet reshuffle was going on. It didn't take long before Horace stopped me in his security guard uniform, which was admittedly several sizes too small for him, having been designed for a Glabdahardit to wear.
"I'm going to need some ID, sir, before I let you walk around the building."
"You know who I am. I'm Eleron, your new president. And I haven't been given any ID yet," I argued.
"Come with me, sir,"
said cuffing my wings behind my back and taking me to the front desk, where he called for the receptionist. The receptionist, for the moment, just happened to be me. I answered the phone and told him that, yes, Eleron was allowed in the building as agreed by me, President Eleron.
"Oh, that's all right then. We must have the paperwork, you know,"
said Rur, letting me go and cuffing me and disappearing round the corner without a word. Hastily I put in an order for an ID for me and Eglo then and there, just in case. While I was doing that, Moldolphus walked past. I asked him how things were going in his new security department. He stared at me.
"Oh, it's not allowed to tell you, just so."
"You can tell me. You wouldn't have that job at all if it wasn't for me," I declared.
"But,"
said Moldolphus,
"it's a very polite bro."
So saying, he stomped off down the corridor again. A few seconds later, there was an explosion coming from the financial department. Worried, I walked in to find a light lying on the floor.
"Everything's all right, sir,"
he protested.
"I was just running some expenses through the Mechion calculator that my predecessor had left for me, and the whole thing blew up. It says we're bankrupt, so I'm going to have to tighten our budgets from now on. Now, how little can Humrasianart and Mrasianbrat get away with eating, so we don't have to import more food in from the replicators? Every little bit helps."
However, before I could answer, I heard a squeak coming from next door and rushed in to find 3 Glabdahardits hiding under a table in terror at the sudden explosion. Calming them down, on my knees as I talked to them, Lawrence the Clandesprod chose that moment to come in and take a rather unflattering picture of me for his new publicity campaign, which was instantaneously sent to the printers. Trying to keep my calm, I explained to him that both humans and Mrasianarts tended to judge by faces rather than posteriors, and could we possibly print something else? To which he shrugged and told me that one end of me looked much like another to a Clandesprod. We were then interrupted by Odebeggar, who was now in charge of research, and who insisted on telling me at great length details about Earth dinosaurs for the next 20 minutes.
It's amazing. There is one with feathers that might have evolved parallel to the Humrasianart. There's another with really short arms. I wonder if he was a Humrasian like you, sir. I've booked an appointment with you tomorrow to talk about them at length in great fascinating detail. It lasts all day, sir.
Excusing myself and trying not to cry, I backed away and headed back to my office, where I hoped no one would find me. Well, I thought, even if we weren't really working together in the way that I wanted, perhaps I could still make things look that way to the wider world. Half of politics was in appearances, after all, and I still didn't feel as though I was getting much practically done. Every time I tried to raise a point of truly intergalactic importance, it always felt as if something was stopping me. "And that's why we make such a great team," I said to Lulu, the diplomat on Ziggurat 3, via the Universal during the rare moment it was actually working, my tail crossed behind me where she couldn't see it. "Everyone here is pulling together in the same direction, and we all want the same thing, which is peace, happiness and prosperity for all."
Yoo-hoo!
Said Aglo, choosing that moment to walk into the room.
Well, you're doing that all wrong for a start.
As I was saying, I ploughed on, I don't think of myself as president, more as just one of a team.
Eleron,
Roared Bob.
what do you mean signing off on peace fountains without my knowledge? Who do you think you are? Get in here now!
We have absolute trust in each other's abilities, I lied as Jane entered the room squeaking and burying her head under my legs as an angry Moldovas chased around the room going,
Fiasco! No, no, no!
"We eat and breathe and sleep peace," I carried on, at which point Rura entered the room with a 7-layer sandwich and put his feet up on the next door desk for a long lunch break. "We're all hard at work, right now," I added, as Rura sat on an unsighted Horace who was already fast asleep in the chair, and simply rolled him out of it without waking him. "Absolutely nothing can stop this crack team, of course," I finished as Odebeggar floated into the room, an earth tea cosy wrapped around his head, chanting something mystical. I caught a look at my correspondent's face. Thundersprots are always the easiest species in the universe to read, and Luna was no different, her mouth caught agape in frozen horror. I coughed. "I hope that's everything. Thank you very much. Goodbye," and ended the call as fast as I could. This had been a long day. Things had been growing steadily more difficult on Decreeta ever since the night of our farewell party on Mars, and it felt as if the IPO was coming apart at the seams, so I decided to have another one, of sorts. Only this time it would be on my terms, the equivalent of a Mrasianbrat party on alien soil, rather than an alien party on Mrasianbrat soil. I had a word with Alike, who was already becoming one of my most trusted colleagues, at home with any machinery or equipment we gave him, and by the end of the day we were gathered together in the hall, in amongst the 11 modified food replicator machines. I had sent out invitations, but I would love to see everyone for a get-together when we had finished work, and to my amazement, all 9 of my colleagues, plus Agro, agreed to come. When they were all seated behind each machine, I began to speak. "IPO family, it has been a busy few days, and you have all worked extremely hard, I'm sure, so I thought it was about time we had some fun. Our idea of a party is to have a good time, but probably in a completely different way to you all. Instead of being sociable and losing control of yourself, we like to go inwards and restore the balance of mind, body and soul." Some tinkling music started playing from my MP90 Astral Projections collection. Alike has kindly modified the food replicator machines to double as equipment for each of you. I invite each of you to join with me in a combined course of meditation, Pilates and yoga. I think you will all find it fulfilling. Bob scoffed from the 3 yoga mats that had been placed for his head.
Trusted the Mrasianbrat to invite me to a party and then tell me to be quiet. How is this meant to help us exactly?
"Well," I said, trying to sound professorial, "your mind should open up as your body does, gently stimulated by careful movement to release all the tension and knots in your body. Not to mention opening up all your inner chakras. No species was designed to sit at a desk all day after all, though some of us have greater problems than others. Now, follow me." I shut my eyes and began to levitate, my half-wings still just about strong enough to float me over my machine. Instinctively I could feel Airglow and Odebeggar doing the same. For the others, though, it was a more difficult job.
Oh, stuff this. This is a waste of time. If I'm going to release tension, then I aim to do it the proper way. in front of a television, with a Belobrat brew for each head.
This will be far more healing and restful if you do it properly, Bob, I said. Now just relax yourself into it. I found myself interrupted by snoring. I opened one eye. There you are, you see, I said. Horace is resting his mind already.
Horace is always resting everything.
Complained Aglo sardonically.
He's a habitat after all.
If you want, I continued, sensing that I'd lost the room with my ideas on meditation, we could move on to Pilates and yoga now. I know you all have different bodies to me, so these moments won't work for everyone, but just copy what I do, without hurting yourselves as best you can. I hope you find this as soothing as I do. Right, stand like this for a few seconds, and breathe. I stepped onto my machine and leaned over, stretching my wingtips to my claws. Hearing cricket-like music playing as I clipped my back legs together, which sounded good against the background music. Now everyone, do the downward doosebury and puff your stomach out. Bob, synchronise your breathing in all three heads. It will help clear your mind.
I think this is stupid.
Complained Bob, who clearly wasn't doing anything of the sort.
Where's the booze, the dancing, the party streaming? What's with this awful music?
It's Argybrath's song, I explained. They can't communicate fully yet, but the sounds they make are very soothing.
It's just a load of squeaking,
Said Bob.
They're probably saying something rude to each other if we translated. You're not getting me on one of those infernal machines, Eleron, president or not.
Each to their own, I replied, reaching a point of limitless levitation. Just then there was another squeak. Jane had bravely tried the machine, but found it too frightening, and rolled herself up into a ball to escape from it. This, however, only made things worse for her, and she found herself rolling into Ruru next door to her, and taking him by surprise, so that he fell over into the path of the light. The Mechion had been busy throughout my speech, tinkling with his machine to make it go faster, so that it shot out into the next two rows, collecting Odebeggar, Eglo, Lawrence, Moldofus, Cody and Bob, who did end up on his machine after all. Unfortunately, only the middle part of his body, with his arms and legs, were left running to catch up.
I'll get you for this, Eleron.
He puffed as I ran over to turn his machine off for him. The IPO hall was in absolute chaos and disorder, and mangled bodies, the very opposite of what I had set out to achieve, all except for Horace, who somehow continued sleeping through all the chaos. Class dismissed, I added when the noise was all over. We'll pick this up another day.
No, we will not,
Said Eglo quickly, unrolling Jane back to a proper shape and size. I think my chakras have just stopped shut, complained Lawrence, rubbing his back.
I said you lay, bozo.
Offered Moldofus, rubbing his antlers.
Indeed, this being is most aggrieved of this agrarious enterprise, from which this first part has been a duly compromised and unwilling scenario which he finds greatly erroneous and wishes to deter, repeating forthwith in perpetuity, scorned Cody.
I think the food replicators might be damaged beyond repair now.
Said Alike, stroking his head, while Aurora burst into tears.
Good one.
Alike continued, comforting the Dewsbury giant.
It still dispense food, just not necessarily what you ask for, and not necessarily at the time you ask for it.
Just great.
Complained Eglo.
We weren't working that well to begin with. Thanks a lot, Eleron. Next time we'll have a proper party, it's all the same to you, President.
Finished Bob, still panting for breath. Oh dear, I'd so wanted our little group to come together and learn to trust each other. And somehow socialising with a bunch of other worlders was proving much harder than it had proved to be back on Mars. After the debacle of that afternoon, with several machines still not working properly, I decided to make good on my promise to do some cooking for everyone. Again I sent invites to everyone at the IPO with mock orders to turn up for a meal of worm burgers and narwhal juice. Only 2 people turned up, the rest clearly still mad at me for earlier. Even the Dewsbury giant said he wasn't hungry, while Eglo said she had already got sick of my cooking back on Mars. Though frustrated, I hoped the smell wafting up from the IPO headquarters would bring people to us. I've been thinking, I said to Horace and Lawrence, my only 2 guests, later, when the food was ready. It's all very well sitting in my office and signing papers, but nothing I've done this past week has really made a difference to anything the Belobrats are working on. What I really need to do is make a speech, perhaps make it a regular routine, updating beings from all over the universe as to what we're up to. I think it would help boost morale and explain where the universe's taxes are going, as well as make people feel heard. I can make it a fireside chat. After all, currently Decreeta is no heating, and we have to have a constant fire up in our room because of the weather. Horace shrugged.
Sounds like a lot of unnecessary work to me, sir.
Lawrence grinned at me though. No, that's a great idea, he said. I love the notion of being part of a clan that's universe-wide instead of only a cave-wide. And your species was really moving. That's your strong suit compared to the rest of us. Thank you, Lawrence, I said, suddenly feeling happier. I know it's early days here, but I do feel I'm in danger of losing that vision I arrived here with. This job sucks so much life out of you with all its problems, compromises and obstacles. I feel I'm in danger of losing the vision I came in with.
Suit yourself,
said Horace, shaking his head.
as long as it doesn't interfere with your real job. I want these forms deciding what official TV IPO should stock in their canteens by tomorrow, remember? You don't want to upset the rest of the universe by only having plant spot tea all the time.
I pulled a face. But it's what I like to drink. I'm sure the rest of the universe doesn't care about my taste buds. Excited, Lawrence persuaded me to abandon our meal and took me to his office, where he fiddled about with cables while I scribbled down some notes. This is so much easier than working with the Belobrats, he said. They were really interested in talking about themselves, not about what they wanted to do, and that always got boring by the 17th hour. Right, the university's all ready for your first broadcast. Speak when you're ready, sir, said Lawrence, fiddling with his equipment. Dear friends from around the universe, I started, I'd like to introduce you.
Wait,
said Horace, walking in.
this chitty for a new endurance fountain on the growth list needs signing.
Yes, of course, I replied, signing away. Dear friends from around the universe, There was a loud bang from next door, followed by Bob putting his head round the door.
Just in case you heard that,
He said,
I was testing the weaponry and thought I would be able to improve on it. After all, I was best in my DIY crafts at the academy. It's such a measly earth invention, I figured I'd be able to do something with it.
That's absolutely no problem, I said, before turning back to Lawrence. Dear friends,
There's a call for you, Edwin.
said Ruru.
There's a chap from Induce who says he's just encountered a race of see-through aliens who've turned him invisible. Between you and me, I think it's a bit mad. I thought I'd pass it on.
I groaned. Invisible? Then tell him I can't see him. Wait, is that the same dude's giant who's called me 3 times to ask for a recipe advice? Maybe we could give him another number to call? Right, where were we? Dear...
Give it down!
yelled the light, walking in through the door and looking as incensed as I'd ever seen it, usually unruffled Mechion.
How am I supposed to work out 10 different planetary exchange rates with all that racket going on?
We'll be done in a minute, honest. I hope, I said to him, patting him on the shoulder and steering him back out the door. Now, Lawrence, where were we? Dear... Just then Jane ran in squeaking and buried herself under my desk. What is it? I asked, pulling her out by the tail.
It's the noise the intercom system makes when trying to contact another planet.
She said.
It reminds me of the sound that used to keep me up all night and grab the hardest. I was scared for years before I discovered it was my neighbour's lawnmower. I still have nightmares.
Wait, I said. I thought Glad the Hardest was a planet without any glass. Jane's 2 beady eyes stared back at me.
That's right, Eleron.
Then why?
I don't know. That's why it was so scary. We didn't know what a lawnmower was.
The Glad the Hardest seemed less puzzled by Mr. Newmont than I was.
Sorry, am I interrupting anything important?
Not at all, I said, but I do have to crack on. Feel free to stop work until I call in on you and change the ringtone. Now, Lawrence.
Eleron,
Yelled Airglow, stomping away, and
the new decor has just been installed. I just wanted you to be the first to know I'm not happy. I ordered roulette in stripes, not roulette in polka dot.
Right, I said, I've had it. I will come back later when things have calmed down. And with that I walked off to my office, locked the door, and put my head in my wings. This was hopeless. I couldn't do what I needed to do because everyone else seemed to need me to do things that didn't need doing. No, come on, things can't surely be as bad as they seem, I told myself. This is a new job, on a new planet, with all new colleagues, all of whom were after your role. It was never going to be easy. Pull yourself together. That was a whole lot easier said than done, however. I felt so lost and hopeless. So much of politics on Mars felt like running fast to stand still, but here I was trying to run a marathon, and everything kept pushing me backwards. I tried to think of my parents, of Eleanor and Oberon, of how they would never give up if faced with the odds. I remembered with a start that it was not giving up that had got one of them killed, and forever changed the life of the other. It wasn't just me and my reputation I had to consider either. The universe was a big and scary place. Perhaps it needed someone tougher than me to run it. Being on this wretched planet was bringing out all the worst elements in Airglow too, cut off as she was from her beloved audiences back home. There she'd always been the odd one out, treated for being special and unique because she looked it, and while I'd always shied away from that attention and hated my differences, she seemed to blossom from it. No wonder taking her to a planet where everyone was different had changed her mindset so. I really should have seen it coming. I had always done my best to protect her, to shield her from people and tell her she was special, because to me there was no one more special. No other creature in the whole of the universe smiled as beautifully, or laughed as brightly as my beloved Airglow. Of that I was sure. Here, though, I was too busy to protect her. With the best will in the world, I couldn't protect my colleagues forever either. Either something had to change, or I had to change, or quit, or both. Maybe I should quit right there and then. Just as I had made my mind up to go and tell Airglow we were leaving, Bob knocked on my door and, feeling better, I got up from my desk and let him in. He was smiling, perhaps the first person to do that to me all day.
Well, Eleron,
He said, walking in and sitting down in my special seat with such confidence that it wasn't till later I realised he had left me standing throughout our conversation.
is your futsal set up yet?
My what?
Futsal, that chip in your wing. It's named after the Cavalosian who started taking the first official transcripts of the IPO, but it's been embellished a lot since.
Oh, I said, that thing again. Yes, or at least the chip got put in. I've no idea if it's actually working. To be honest, I'm not too sure how it works.
Me neither,
Said Bob, putting all four legs up on my desk.
spooky Becky old technology. I have people to understand that sort of thing for me. Just as long as it's turned off where I want it to be, that's fine with me. No scandal somewhere, so I must have got the hang of it so far, what? Ha ha ha. Alright, Eleron. I've checked your wing, and both of our futsals are turned off at this hour. So, you win. How much do you want?
Pardon, I said, dumbfounded.
You've been here, what, a week now on this spot-forsaken planet? You haven't quit off the spot as I'd hoped. So I have an offer for you. If you choose option A, you can keep your name on the desk, have a fancy remote office on some planet of your choosing, maybe do 2 or 3 hours of work a year, and keep your mammoth salary. I could even get you a lucrative book deal for your memoirs, and an elaborate pricey shed to write them in. All you'd have to do is let me run things my way, the way things have always been run. I'm sure no one out there would be any the wiser, and then everyone's happy. Of course, if it's just money you're after, then you can leave right now with a large grant. I have final say over the budget and can give you the same budget as an entire planet. Or just put it down to creative accounting and say it's a new colony we've been secretly populating with hybrid species but got lost, or something. Or, you know, some mutually fulfilling proposition.
What? I said, unable to quite believe my ears. You're trying to bribe me,
Well, yeah, if you want to put it as boldly as that.
said Bob, now helping himself to one of the narworm burgers I kept in the drawer in my desk.
Tasty. You know how it works as well as anyone. How else would you have risen so far in the political system on Mars, eh?
Hard work, I said, puffing out my chest. Discipline. Ideas. Motivational speeches. My background,
Oh, that.
said Bob, still chewing.
Get some Belobrat busted on this next time, that's how I like them as a good fellow. Well, your reputation doesn't count for much here, you know. We're all better qualified, more experienced, and better suited to this job than you. Even McGlad hard it is, which he's currently hiding under a desk and refusing to come out. So what will it be then, eh? Option A or B?
Option C or D, I said, trying my best not to lose my temper. Either you leave this office now and never ever speak of this again, or I will go and tell Horace everything you've told me and get you sacked. I'm the president after all. Bob sat back in his chair and slow hand clapped, and slow leg clapped. If you've never been slow hand clapped by a Belobrat, well, let me tell you, it's depressing. This Belobrat and an awful lot of limbs, and you just how to use them. He looked at me icily.
Oh, well done. This is going to be fun. I heard about people like you, idealist music lovers, who do rom Elegon, but I never thought I'd meet one of you in the wild,
he said. Well, what? I asked.
An uncorruptible politician,
He said.
a formerly extinct species. Oh, it looks as if we'll have to find some other way of making you leave. What to do?
I pushed the chair and Bob over to the door, which was quite a feat given his size and bulk. You're not getting rid of me, I said through gritted teeth, forgetting how adamant I had been about quitting just a few minutes earlier. Not ever. So get used to it. The old days are over, and I'm in charge now. Either you get used to that or you go. Now. Once my futsal is up and running, you won't ever be able to talk to me like that again. Don't think I won't tell Horace about this conversation either.
Oh,
said Bob, flashing me a crooked smile.
I don't think that will make much difference. He chose option E. He can run this place any way he likes and collect the fat pension at the end of it all, as long as he also does anything I ask him to. He wouldn't think it to meet him, given how laid back he seems. There's a real power-hungry streak in that habitat I almost admire.
Well, good day, Eleron. I'm sorry there won't be more time to get to know you. Laughing, Bob paused and lingered in the doorway, staring at me, before finally walking out. I walked up to our room and collapsed on the bed, or at least the part of it that wasn't covered in Mrasianbrat research, and fell into a restless, feverish sleep, an unwelcome hangover from my human ancestry, as he seemed to be one of only 3 species that ever needed to nap. I was woken up by Airglow coming in and smiling down at me.
How's work going, Eleron?
She said, all smiles. Terrible, I said, groaning. I think I've just made a bad situation worse, and we're all doomed. There's still 3 Globter Harlots hiding under their desk. It's just now it is a desk in a different office. I've been assaulted by my own security guard, watched a Mrasian blow up a room with a calculator, and been fed incessant facts about Earth by a Mrasianart who's clearly gone insane. I mean, what even the heck are dinosaurs? They have to be made up. There's a power-mad Belobrat in charge of everything who hates my guts and is trying to make me leave. You really don't want to know what the McGrump said to me. I may have broken the food machines beyond repair. There's real mutiny in the air out there. One of the 10 planets has resigned from the IPO already. The other 9 are probably about to follow. It's all gone wrong. I put my head in my wings. Airglow pouted and waved her arms in the air, poised on the knife edge between further comfort and an outburst of her own, before coming down on the side of the latter.
And what about me? Aren't you going to work about my day? I don't know why I ever let you agree to let me come to this awful room on this awful planet. I mean, our room is filled with enough boxes of Mrasian research you could have sucked a dragoon of Belobrats. There's wallpaper that seems to be put up by a cross-eyed algebra on stilts, and the food replicator machines have gone wrong again and insist on serving me nothing except hot dog buns with icing. It's worse than I remember from our childhood on Mars before Alioth got decent food in from the Dewsbury Giants. I can't get my universal to work at all today either, as apparently the storm outside is too strong. I can't show off how wonderful and marvellous my life is on social media, which just goes to show how horrible and hideous my life is.
I put the duvet over my head and sobbed. What had I said? The last thing I wanted to do was hurt the one I loved with both my hearts. I failed, I wailed. I failed everyone who ever supported me. I failed the universe, I failed the voters, most of all I failed you. I'm just going to stay here and wait for it all to pass.
Well, you needn't think you can hide under there. Wait, Eleron, you're really hurt, aren't you?
I can't do this, I said from under the duvet. Everybody here resents me and thinks they can do a better job than me. The worst thing is, I think they might be right. I had all these visions for a better, grander, more cooperative world, but it's become increasingly clear that there is too much in people that needs changing for that to happen. The universe doesn't need me. I'm not sure if it ever did, so I'm just going to hide under here until I've been deposed. You're right too, I should never have taken you here, or thought that I was more than I was. I'm so very sorry, Airglow. We'll go home tomorrow. To my embarrassment, I heard a sudden cough from the doorway, revealing that I wasn't alone. With a sinking feeling, and worried about how much she had heard, I raised my head from underneath the duvet and saw Horace at the doorway. To my surprise, he was smiling at me.
Well, sir,
He said,
I don't know how you did it. I've just been in to check on all the members of staff for our monthly report. They all love their new job. They've admitted to me that there may have been a few teething problems, but now that they are more used to their roles, they'll really need to enjoy them. Dare I say it, sir, we are even beginning to work as a team at last. When half of them finished their shift, we went round to their old offices to see if they could provide any help to the others. I think your plan is really working, sir.
It is? I said, puzzled, having expected to be fired that very moment, before realising that I ought to be sounding more presidential. Oh, and of course it is. You're a fine crack team after all, the best that all the planets had to offer, and I'm glad to have you all working for me. Horace continued.
There's a party being held for both of you downstairs if you'd like to join in. A proper one this time, not like that Mrasianbrat one, although I found it all rather restful myself, sir. Borough has been cooking up some dishes for us so that we have a real feast, not like all that replicator food. And he says he's going to juggle the Glad Hardix later, a party trick he learned by accident, one we're all curious to hear about.
Oh yes, I said, I'd love to come. I'd dearly like to get to know you all better. Are you coming, Airglow?
Absolutely.
Airglow grinned.
I've been starved at parties all my life, and now I get 2 of them in a week. I can't wait.
Aha, so the Belobrat was wrong, I thought. My staff wouldn't be throwing me a welcoming party if they didn't want me to stay. Fancy thinking he could get rid of me that easily. Not likely. I went to get dressed, and to my confusion found that my half of the wardrobe was empty. Airglow, though, had an extra 3 wardrobes that hadn't been there that morning, I noticed. Where are my things? I asked her. Haven't they been unpacked yet?
Oh, those old things. I threw them out,
She said. What am I going to wear then? I asked. Especially if there's a party.
Oh,
She said offhandedly.
there's some old Belobrat stuff in that wardrobe. Personally, I think you'll look better in that than what you were wearing anyway. It'll be much closer to my style, in fact.
I couldn't believe I was hearing this. But they won't fit me, I said. I don't have 3 heads for a start.
Oh, Eleron,
Scowled Airglow.
why do you have to make such a fuss about such a little thing? It's a party. You're meant to look informal. You're always so uptight. Come on, embrace your inner habitat. I know it's hiding underneath all that intensity somewhere.
Well, I suppose my wife was right. I mean, I knew as a good Mrasianart, but it mattered what I said far more than what I wore. And these Decreetians were throwing a party for me. Shrugging my shoulders, I chose the smallest outfit and hoped for the best. Chances are no one would notice anyway, and if it did, they wouldn't dare make a comment to their presidential boss. I was far too respected.
Futsal Universal Entry 4-753847/638/AYB. Intergalactic Peace Board Official Office Supplies. President Eleron. Headline, a welcoming party for me and my staff. What fun. Retrieved from the Universal Records Office.
Hello, Bob.
Airglow flashed with Belobrat a special secretive smile as we came down the stairs.
What on earth are you wearing?
Laughed Odebecker as he saw me.
Did you lose a bet, sir?
Drawled Horace.
I hear the Dewsbury Giants want some gun back.
Hooted Bob.
Leave him alone.
Snapped Airglow.
I think he looks rather fine.
The party in the canteen was a fun one, far better than mine had been. Were these really the same members of staff who had been so standoffish with me just a few hours before? They were suddenly more fun than I think I'd ever had in my life. It was as if someone had given them a strong talking to. Alike, after asking belated permission, revealed that he had been cataloguing my record collection as part of his off-duties recreation, and was our DJ for the night, finding some most glorious Earth records I had forgotten all about. Lawrence had us in fits of laughter with his monologues. Bob wowed us with a series of very bad Belobrat jokes. Cody got very merry, declaring, "This first party is having a first party, and we'd like to put this on the record. Whoopee!" And Rura did indeed juggle a squeaking trio of glad harlots who seemed to be having the time of their lives, though Rura never did let on how he had learnt to juggle them by accident. Odebecker spent the evening under the desk trying to tap into our collective energies and telling our fortune. He said we would all be greeted as heroes back home and win every election we ever stood in, although that might have just been because he wasn't used to the Belobrat whisky. Even Moldolphus half smiled at me as he got drunk on Camalosing wine and walked past going, "Ho, ho, ho," to everyone. The biggest revelation, though, was Airglow. When my wife had often been sullen or withdrawn in recent years, and had been almost permanently since arriving on Decreeta, suddenly she was as bright as the sunlight that beamed through the clouds on this planet, laughing, dancing, joking and giggling, the life and soul of the party. In all our years growing up on Mars together, I had never seen her quite as spirited as this. But then Mars, for all its wonder and brilliance and beauty and spirituality and wisdom, had never really been a planet that focused much on fun. Now I saw what Airglow had been missing out on all these years, cut off from a Belobrat ancestry, where parties were of frequent occurrence, and I saw her dazzle and shine, revealing a side of herself that I'd only realised in passing had existed before today. She was a social butterfly, fluttering her wings and making everyone feel flattered by her attention, while I remained a social caterpillar, awkward and confused, watching her perform her magic like a skeptic scientist, but nevertheless seeing it work powerfully with every stroke of a sun-filled wand in her eyes as she gazed her way around the room intensely, focusing on everyone she wanted to bask in her glow. How odd, I thought to myself, that in private it was me who was always extolling the virtues of the citizens of the universe, while Airglow looked on in disdain, and yet now, when they were actually here before us, it was her who knew exactly how to treat them, and me who felt like an argy-graph out of water. At one point, when I tried to talk a little bit of business to Lawrence to see if we ought to record part of the party for posterity, to make us representatives seem more approachable to our electorate, Airglow pulled me away with a mischievous look in her eyes and led me into an intense, intimate dance that was part extrovert Belobrat, part introvert Mrasianart, all passion. I loved the new happy glow that Airglow carried around with her. Before long every species was looking in our direction, most of the male and even one or two of the female members of staff staring in awe at her and jealousy at me. I began to feel quite self-conscious in my ill-fitting dress, but Airglow lapped it all up, dancing faster and wilder until finally I had to sit down, passing her up to a suddenly eager room full of prospective dancers. As Airglow swapped between partners, and even briefly made Moldolphus break out in a wide grin that looked greatly alien on his face, I went to sit down next to my vice president, who also had a beaming smile on his. "Horace," I said, disbelieving everything the Belobrat had told me, "this is fantastic. It feels like we're a real live team now. Whose idea was it to have this party? They deserve a raise. Alex just told me he thinks we might even be able to afford it now after certain changes is made."
Well, sir, those elections we had took quite a toll on us those past few months. We needed to let off a bit of steam, and no one knows how to party like a habitat, although I must say our missus is doing a very good job.
It was a great idea, I added. It really feels like we're part of a unit now. I just wish the humans had been here to join in. This is their music we're playing after all, and quite a lot of their alcohol we're drinking too, I believe.
"I'm doing my job, sir,"
said Horace, grinning at me.
"And after all, it's all because you did yours. We were really dreading some standoffish ape of the leader throwing his weight around and laying down the law, or a pushover who wouldn't give us any direction. Your alteration of the job application really inspired us. I've been talking, without naming any names, we all rather secretly liked your vision for the universe, even if one or two of us thought it was maybe a little naive. You've got a good vision for us, Eleron. Just stick to it as best you're able to in the future, and we'll back you up as best we can."
"Thank you, Horace," I said, hugging him. "What I'd really like is to unite the best of all our policies. There was so much in your manifesto I felt really jealous over and wish I put in mine."
"That's all right, sir,"
said Horace, putting his wings around me.
"We Haberdats do tend to come up with good points when we're older, and I'm older than most of you. It was the odd sensible point in yours, too. You seem to have quite a vision for the universe, one that I don't think anyone else here shares."
"Oh yes," I said, warming up to one of my favourite subjects. "I don't know if it was nearly being deported or being murdered when I was little, but I really do see things so strongly. A universe where everyone is safe from harm, where every being on every planet can put aside their petty differences and work towards the good of everyone, where every being is guaranteed a certain level of income, food, shelter and access to all the arts their hearts desire, where striving for better is the right of every citizen, oblivious of where they were born and into what circumstances, where everyone is free to travel and live on any planet they please, doing whatever job they most badly want to do. I dream of a universe where everyone is free to follow their heart and will always be saved from rack and ruin by the profits made by those lucky enough to have found their niche in life. I'm sure that everyone out there is a potential friend and expect to treat them like one, at least until being proven otherwise." By now Horace was laughing at me, his feathery eyebrows raised pointedly at me.
"Well,"
he said,
"your father wasn't wrong. Very practical ideas, with ideas above his grandeur, he said. But a Humrasianart that might just be crazy and passionate enough to pull his vision off.
Yes, I said, laughing too. That does sound like me. People have been saying that to me ever since I started to work alongside Ali back on Mars. They'll probably still be saying it long after I've been voted out of office. Half of my grand scheme's unfinished. I like to think some of them are possible, though.
Like what, sir?
Said Horace, raising two of his free eyebrows. Well, I'd like to be the first person to ever visit all 10 known planets for a start. Just think, in the 250 years we've known, there are 10 planets on our side of the universe. Not one creature has visited more than probably 3 of them. We have the technology to do that now.
Why, sir?
To meet people, to get some perspective on how this rock can help everybody as fairly as possible. We have a unique perspective here on Decreeta, being right at the heart of things and in the middle of all the other planets. I'd love to make the most of that. Horace shook his head.
Completely impractical, sir. What if you started spreading some illness between planets? I mean, Earth still has the common cold and 6 planets and the common COVID. I just think how long it would take you.
No, I said, tapping the gadget I always carried around with me. You forget, Vice President. I've had the Universal to use for my research on Mars far longer than on any other planet. I know all sorts of things not many people seem to want to know. Remember the Mechion antivirus filter that was exported to each planet and fitted? Well, we never have to worry about passing on a sickness between us ever again. We also have a super fast shuttle now that can carry us around to other planets in a day if need be. It's a Mechion ship I sought to have commandeered for the IPO. In fact, it should have been here by now. Not that I will need it yet. Horace looked guiltily. Is that the big roulet-coloured one? I thought it was sent to us by mistake as we didn't need it, so I lent it to the Belobrat 11 foosball team. I hoped you didn't mind, but I owed them a favour. They are paying us handsomely for it. Up the red roulette, that's what I say. I was rather put out. Well, that was a direct order. You should have checked with me first. I mean, I am the boss. Horace shrugged.
You weren't here. You arrived after everybody else.
Yes, I continued. Everyone knows Mars shuttles are the slowest in the universe beside the Earth ones. That's why I wanted that ship. Oh well, I suppose it won't matter for now, but I don't think it's a matter of life and death the way it might be if we need it in a hurry for some peaceful purpose. How long does a foosball game last, anyway?
Oh,
said Horace.
about 3 years, I think. And though it's not a matter of life and death, sir, it's happened without sport, so it's far, far, far more important than that.
I glared at him.
All right, I'll get him to swap the shuttle after the next set. We should end by tomorrow. Or the day after. Or maybe the day after that.
Thank you, I said. I don't like pulling rank here as I want to work as a team, but I really do think that peace is a little more important than sport somehow.
Oh,
Said Horace.
but sir, it's a crucial deciding match to see if it goes up to the Intergalactic League.
I mean, this wasn't even a top league game, I spluttered.
Well, no, sir. It was a friendly. Well, actually, it was against the Belobrat, so it wasn't all that friendly. Anyway, I do see your point, sir,
said Horace.
I will see to it that it arrives as soon as possible. Maybe this parking back will be founded. You were saying, sir?
Oh, just about my ideas for peace. I don't mean to get in the way of your game, Horace. It's just that I wish the universe would treat peace as something central to their lives they had to work at, the way people do now about money and status symbols and, yes, sport.
Maybe you ought to see a match with me one day, sir, and you might think differently.
Maybe, Horace. Maybe you should come with me on my journeys across the universe one day.
All right, sir, it's a deal,
said Horace, laughing.
It's the final I really wanted to see anyway. That's not for another 8 years, though.
I settled back into my chair. I do realise, Horace, that it's my job to pass my vision on to the rest of you, and my responsibility to get you excited for it. I hope that one day you might be able to see it and help me. Then maybe we can really get peace.
Yes, sir,
said Horace.
As long as you realise it's my job to remind you when you're being impractical.
Being practical, I replied. Well, 1 or 2 of my colleagues have said that on Mars. It's true. I'd like to think I've been proved right, though, on most things, however. Sometimes to be successful in politics, you need to keep an eye on the bigger picture. Horace sniffed at this.
No, politics is about the small details of keeping the equilibrium with no grand gestures, or so it is will happen to us anyway. You want to bring people with you, not scare them with a jump into the unknown.
I'm useless over. But what if our jump is necessary? Politics moves so slowly, and the universe moves so fast. No wonder we can't keep up with what's happening half the time. Horace looked down at his drink.
Maybe on Borough things were different for you, but that was on one planet, with one predominant species. Do you really think you're going to get that lucky trying to apply your ideals to 10 worlds? With all the best will in the world, it just can't be done, Eleron.
Maybe, I sighed. You wouldn't be the first to tell me that my visions won't come to anything. As far as I can tell, nobody in the universe has ever tried to make things better for the many, not the few. It's still so new for us all, this idea that we need to start thinking of the bigger picture instead of concentrating on our own backyard. Surely it's time that such an idea was given the chance to work, just to see if we could make practically everyone happy instead of just a lucky handful. Horace looked me up and down to the point where it was starting to unnerve me.
You really believe that?
He said.
No lie.
Oh no, I said. I find it impossible to lie. Which between you and me has been a bit of a handicap in my chosen career as a politician, but it seems not an unstoppable one. After all, people tend to respect me for my honesty. I always admit my mistakes when I come up short and say sorry. Horace smiled.
I guess we'll soon find out, especially how the futsal chip is inside you. I think it's due to start recording permanently tomorrow, which is why we thought we'd hold a party tonight, so no one can see what you get up to. At the moment, there's a temporary block on your use of the universe for when it goes through all your universal posts. You seem to have a lot, so it might take some time. There will be an alert when they're ready. That will release everything again. Do be warned though, even though there's a delay of several days before transmission, everything you do will be recorded. Except at set points like meal times and bedtime and so on, so be careful what you say.
Thank you, I said. I leaned back in my chair and did one of my favourite Humrasianart things, musing. Your kind fascinates me, Horace. You were the first of the known species to discover telescopes and look up at the stars, but you didn't do anything with them except dream. You were the first race to build rockets, but not for exploration or plundering, but for a toy. You have such willpower and ability and talent, but you use it to make an easier way of life for yourselves on Habitats, not to further yourselves the way a Mrasianart would, or even a human.
Well,
said Horace, so deep in thought I wondered if he had gone to sleep on me.
One of the points is there to life, except to enjoy it. And when you're enjoying it, who cares whether anyone else is out there enjoying it too? All that talk about career, finances and money seems so tiring, but all anybody wants is to be happy. You can have that with nothing.
I laughed. I suspect the Mrasianarts in particular would have a thing or three to say about that. Horace looked at me troubled.
But what other reason could there be to go about your life except to enjoy it? I'm confused.
Oh, I don't know. Money, power, love, knowledge.
No, other beings have the way the universe works all wrong. Don't all those things come to you automatically when you're happy? People love you more when you're happy, but they seem to find you somehow when you're content. You feel more in touch with the glow of the universe somehow when things are going well, which beats knowledge any time. But who wants more? Who wants to start wars when the sun is shining, the Hazula birds are singing, and there's a whole glorious day to waste?
I smiled at him. That's why you're Vice President. It's a good match. You stop me overthinking sometimes, and I should just stay in the moment. Your levity is a good counterpart to my seriousness too. Despite our differences, we kind of cancel each other out.
Oh, believe you me, most habitats would call me serious too, at least at my age. We tend to get more serious as we get older, you see, and experience all life has to throw at us for.
I laugh. Most Mrasianarts consider me too jovial. They put it down to my youth, or maybe my human side. And if anything, I think my human half just makes me more serious and worry more. And I think of the opposite of us again. Mrasianarts tend to get less serious with age. Life seems sillier the more experience you gain somehow.
Then maybe we do indeed have much to learn from each other still, sir.
Horace looked at me in a way he never had before. It was as if a veil had been pulled away from him for the first time, and I was seeing the real him, not the version of him he put out for the cameras or his staff.
You know, Eleron, if there's ever anything you need, you can always come to me. Anything at all. We can look out for each other. For both of me, this is just a job. For you, it seems to be a calling.
Same for you, I said. I know it looks as if we have our differences, but it's in everyone's interest if we work together. We can show the rest of the universe the way things can be done. Horace patted me on the shoulder, half smiling to himself. Just then Eglo came over and pulled Horace away as her last dancing partner. The widest of grins plastered all over her face as the whole room laughed as one. Maybe, I thought to myself as the music played on, things are going to be all right after all. For in this room now, all the known species in the universe seem to be getting on well as friends. And if we strangers, and in many ways competitors, could do it on this small scale, why not the universe as a whole? I had a far more restful sleep than the night before, this time with the remnants of a really good party scattered around my room, conjoined with assorted bits of abandoned Mechion research. I seemed to be resting my head on the U-pile and strained to look at it. Ultramafic, ultrasound, unicycles, unicorns, unitards. I moved my head to look into the mirror to see how bad I looked, but found that Eglo's veil she'd been dancing in last night had been carelessly scattered across it. There had only been room for one person in the bed, so last night I had nobly offered that to Eglo, only to find her face down and snoring in it before I had finished my sentence. Over from the sofa, I gazed at her as the bed went up and down with her heavy Belobratic snores. I had never seen Eglo quite like she'd been the night before, so at home and contented, and I rather liked it. Suddenly it felt as if I'd seen the real her after years of her trying to suppress her louder side to better fit in with Mrasian society. Suddenly it was me who felt like the stranger in this society against so many extroverted aliens. I began to understand how she must have felt all those years, pretending to be something she wasn't. A feeling of tenderness spilling around me, I vowed to show her more of Helisphere and her own species once my work had calmed down, where she could truly be herself permanently. I noticed too how Bob had been the only one of us to keep up with her dancing. It was clearly being around another Belobrat that had spurred her on last night. It couldn't have been easy for Eglo, I supposed, the only natural extrovert lost among nearly a whole world of introverts. No wonder she had acted so troubled and angry and bitter lately. I ought to show her more patience. For now, though, I had a job to do, and one that suddenly seemed extra complicated now that yesterday was over. First, though, I had to stop this annoying alarm beeping. The odd thing was, I didn't remember setting an alarm before, and I certainly hadn't packed one. Still slightly tipsy on Camalosian cocktails, which came with real tales, it gradually dawned on me that the beeping was coming from me. Suddenly sober, I leapt up to check my wing, only to see a dial flashing. It was a Futsard apparently springing into life and recording me officially now, and when I pressed the flashing light, a tiny screen came up blank dated a week ago, when I was still out campaigning for my new role thanks to the mandatory week waiting period just in case some issue of great national importance was being decided and needed a delay. Clearly the recording it was making of me now would be shown to everyone who searched for it in a week's time. Oh, great, I thought. The first official sight most of the universe were going to get of me was me jumping around scared and hungover from a week ago, with more to follow next week if they tuned in to the first official sight of me. It was almost as if Horace had planned it that way, the only 2 times I'd ever been like this. Oh well, it could be worse, I suppose. The things some of the Earth presidents have been caught doing because they had forgotten they were being filmed on the Universal and become part of folklore, were part of the reasons, I was sure, why Doris had decided to leave the IPO in the first place. Davina Cameron and that pig algebra hybrid, oh, now that was a story and a half. Tony Blair and those weapons of moose destruction. Martin Thatcher stealing all that algebra milk. I shuddered. Somehow I seemed to have got off lightly if all anyone saw of me was my slight hangover from a celebratory party. Mind you, what else would the Futsard show? How would I see myself if I was a neutral being gazing in wonder at this new intergalactic president staring back with a hangover? Would I feel proud, concerned, or amused? Although the one on the wall was hidden, from where I was lying I could see into a mirror that I knew from Auntie C had been made of the best Clandesbrot crystal, propped up on the floor. I gazed into it, amazed at how small and insignificant I looked. I didn't look like the sort of leaders I read about on the Universal. Jane aside, I was easily the smallest being on Decreeta, and while I was used to being the smallest on Mars, it was a shock somehow to be surrounded by so many characters who were not only larger than life, but larger than me. I was hopeless. Why did I ever think being in control of this many beings was a good idea? Slowly, regrettably, I turned my eyes from the mirror. Pulling myself together, I staggered to my feet, changed my clothes, and walked downstairs to my office. For now I seemed to be the only being awake. All to the good, I supposed. I could get some work done and prove to my staff and my Universal viewers in a week's time that I was the right sort of hard-working person to lead them. Maybe I'd even show those humans how much they needed the Intergalactic Peace Organisation, and they'd rejoin after all. I settled down in my office with a nest of papers Horace had left me the night before, and went through them all carefully, one by one. As I did so, it struck me that I didn't actually know what day-to-day jobs were needed to maintain peace. What I did know was that this probably wasn't it. All I seemed to be reading were requests for me to appear virtually on different planets to open village fates and the like. Occasionally there might be a border or a trade dispute to settle, or a commemorative statue to commission, but these all seemed to be small fry compared to the bigger job that I'd signed up for, of keeping the world safe. Apart from the McGrumph Camalosian shopping mall dispute, which seemed to be taking eons to solve, there didn't seem to be anything much for me to do at all. Every so often, as I worked, I would catch a glance at myself in the mirror that dominated my office, imagining what footage of me would be like on documentaries in years to come. To my disappointment, instead of looking presidential, I just looked like a scared, wonky Mrasianart with feeble wings, trying to catch sly glimpses of himself and pulling faces. Just as I was getting to the bottom of a pile of documents, Horace walked in with a mug of clandesprod tea, looking worse for wear.
I didn't think you'd be up yet, sir,
He said.
but I've gone to the trouble of making you your favourite brew.
Thank you, Vice President, I said, smiling. How on Decreeta did you guess clandesprod tea was my favourite?
I'd like to read your file, sir, and let me know that you're partly brought up by a clandesprod, so it seemed likely given their love of tea that you would appreciate.
I certainly do, I said, sipping away. My thanks to you both.
Would your First Lady wife appreciate one too, sir? She certainly seemed to be knocking back the beverages last night. Ha ha ha.
Oh, I don't think she's quite so keen, I laughed. You could ask, though.
She seemed to be enjoying herself last night, sir. That was a very different side to her last night, all joyous and contented.
Absolutely, I replied. It must have been hard for her, being stuck on Mars without any other kind around. I'd so hoped the move here might do her some good. Judging by last night, it seemed to. Did you ever marry Horace? My Vice President got a faraway look in his eyes.
Nearly. Once. Back on Happy It would never have worked out. She said I worked too hard and was too serious and ambitious for her. She just wanted a fun time. She never wanted to settle down. Thinking about it, no one at Habridas ever wants to settle down. We mostly start families by accident, as we're too laid back to do much about planning or birth control. Although we do hear there are some Habridas who marry and have children so that they can have an audience to laugh at our joke. Maternity and paternity leave on Habridas last 60 years, so that rather gets in the way of a career too. Talking of which, I think it's time for my first break of the morning, sir. Oh, I nearly forgot. Here are some papers for you to look through.
And Horace dumped another pile on my desk. Where are these from? I asked.
I like put a few plans together for you after we all went to bed, sir. Methodons are nothing if not thorough, particularly when drunk. That was an inspired move to put him in charge of finances, by the way. They've never been this healthy since the IPO began, and they only started work on them a week ago. There are a few ideas to help spend our budget more wisely, and what we might do with the leftover money.
Thank you, Horace. And thank you to the light too when he's awake. I should go over these now. As my Vice President left the room, whistling with his wings in his pockets, I began to glance through the like's plans. Fantastic. While saving just a little bit on overheads and costs, basically cutting down on the extravagance of our Belobrat predecessors, we had enough money to pay for a proper chef from Dusius, imported foods from all 9 planets as a regular service, and would have enough left over for an annual trip to each of the 10 planets to discuss business. I could also come up with a fascinating plan of getting further funding from each of the planets in return for negotiating any trade deals between them. It all looked really good, and I told her like that too when he popped his head round my door later. I couldn't have asked for a better financial advisor. He beamed at me.
Just glad to be of service, sir. All this stuff seemed easy to me, far easier than my research job at home. I don't know how you Mrasianarts do it. I just popped into Odebega's office and he's got everything so neat and tidy. Well, he seems to know everything about everything already.
Later I decided to go and see Odebega and how he was getting on. And indeed everything was very orderly.
Eleron,
He said as I walked in.
I've just been reading up on the history of Decreeta. Did you know that it used to be a mining planet for the Belobrat? They acquisitioned it as it was the most central planet in our half of the universe. But we didn't get much out of the land's resources in the end, so we gave it up and sold it back to the IPO in return for dropping corruption charges against their members.
That information wasn't on the Universal, I said.
No, it wasn't,
said Odebega.
The IPO negotiated keeping it all off the record as part of their settlement handing this planet over to us. I've just been going through the files left for me by my predecessor. So much corruption, so many missing funds. It's fascinating. Unfortunately, there's an agreement in place not to talk about any of these things in the Belobrat's own lifetime. And that's been lived for 1,000 years, there might be a while coming out. But it's good that we know about it, and can do something about it at least.
I might need to look into those old papers sometime. I walked down the corridor to the publicity department, where I was met with Lawrence, who also seemed pleased to see me. "Look at these, boss," he said, pleased, holding up a picture that I only hazily remember being taken the night before, of all 10 of us, plus Airglow, smiling together quite genuinely, in huge contrast to the false pose pictures I remember from the Belobrat days of the IPO, or indeed our own mugshots taken specially a few days earlier. Now we looked like a real team. The holographic photo had the caption,
The universe is a team of friends that just haven't met yet. Meet the 11 who are working together to keep you safe.
Underneath there were potted biographies of all of us. I had to still myself to read about the events of Insurgence all over again, but I had to admit it was all accurate and rather impressive. I told Lawrence so and he beamed. He clearly hadn't got much praise when being in charge of secrecy, maybe because he was always too busy talking about our state secrets to hear anyone. Something about Lawrence's office seemed rather different though, something I couldn't quite place. Isn't this room different to how it was before, when Bob was in charge? There are no velvet curtains, or elaborate plant pots, or ginormous computers. Lawrence looked puzzled. "I don't know what it looked like before, sir. I never came into this room before I got the job. It was like this when I got here." "Okay," I said, turning round to walk out the door. "Good work, Lawrence." I got a hug in reply, which was fun till Lawrence got stuck in the door frame. I made a note to myself to get a light to come up with some gadget to move the officers around in the morning so that certain beings have more space again. Feeling mightily relieved at how things were going, I moved next door to the diplomat office, where I found Jane the Glabdahardit entertaining an official from Earth on the monitor. She seemed to be doing a lot better than her predecessor, as they were deep in conversation about the Earth pulling out of the IPO. I listened in a while, and she was doing a great job, so I just kept out the way until the Earth ambassador spotted me on the monitor and called me over. "This is so much nicer than speaking to that McGrump," she said. "Well done, President Eleron. You seem to have everything in hand. I'm really sorry the Earth is pulling out of the IPO now." I felt a warm glow of satisfaction at this. If even outsiders thought we were doing a good job, then maybe we actually were. As for Moldovas, he was having a wonderful time in the secrecy department. He told me off for knocking on his door without an appointment and refused to give anything away when I spoke to him.
You wish you said so,
he said to me with a wink. As for Bob, he was having an even better time of things in the military department. The Glabdahardit's table was now propped up against the wall and being used as a shield.
Take that, Farmid, ha 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 ha!
Bob was saying as he planned fake attacks on each of the 10 worlds.
It's important to have a plan of action ready in case we need one.
He explained to me in between battles. I supposed he was right, although I didn't really foresee any time when we needed one. To be honest, the fact that we had a military department at all made me uncomfortable. Still, I couldn't get my own way over everything in one go, I realised. On my way back to the office, Rura walked over and nodded at me. "How's it going?" I asked my new security officer.
"More secure role, eh?"
he said, waving back. Feeling more leisurely than I had in a while, I walked on to Horace's room. "Any news for me, Vice President?"
Just the one thing, sir. There's an insisted that, even though they aren't an official part of the IPO, they say it's discriminatory not to be involved, so they are sending 2 humans named Mike and Steele to work for us. Do I prove it?
seems a bit odd if they're not going to be involved in the IPO's goings-on, but I suppose it won't do any harm if they aren't privy to any state secrets. Let's make Mike our new receptionist. Oh, we need a cleaner. Ask Steve to bring a hoover with him. I hear the Earth ones are awfully good. Not surprising, really, being the only known species that ends up turning into dust rather than shedding skin in a single layer.
Very good, sir. Hey, I believe we've lost touch with the Earth shuttle. They are awfully slow, sir.
Oh, that's a shame. Never mind, I suppose I'll get here eventually. I walked back to my office, contentedly. Things seemed to be going well after a shaky start, then my human intuitive side kicked in. Maybe things are going too well. Maybe that meant something bad was about to happen. The Agrosian spaceship in the shuttle pad was being polished inside and out, while the Agrosian army daubed themselves in war paint and danced in delight at the prospect of having new territory to conquer and new beings to enslave. Maybe some of them would even prove to be tasty. The shuttle was cigar-shaped, based on the long-pointed spears the Agrosians carried with them, and which were greeted as a sign of great fear and terror in their half of the universe. The Agrosians were going through their final checks on the shuttle in preparation for their Queen's final inspection.
Mush!
Said the first alien, putting on his medals.
Invasion ready. Time to go now. Oof!
Said the second, holding a clipboard.
All ready? Dosh. Finances ready?
Asked the first alien again.
Yes!
Said a third, clutching some Agrosian leaves with numbers written on them.
Dosh. Weaponry ready?
Asked the first alien once more.
Ready.
Said the fourth alien, waving dozens of spears.
Nosh. Food ready?
Asked the first alien again.
Ready.
Said the fifth alien, clutching a sack of Agrosian fruit that tasted bitter and sour, and was, so academics later considered, responsible for much of the aggression in their species.
Dosh. Is our Queen ready?
Asked the first alien.
I'll just ask her.
Said a sixth, dressed in fine robes, and he scuttled over to where he could see his queen walking magisterially on the other side of the courtyard.
My dearest reverential magisterialness.
There was a pause, while all the Agrosians held their breath.
I am ready.
Said Queen Calixta finally, walking into the room surrounded by dozens of quaking Agrosians.
Fire up all the engines and let's go conquering.
All the Agrosians let out a yell,
Rah,
and madly hopped from foot to foot. In a lower voice, the Queen muttered.
Those poor aliens won't know what's hit them.
At this, the Agrosian battle cruiser sailed off into the aching chasm of space at full speed.
Port Solid, Universal Entry, AB 544-936-4980. President Eleron. RAS Universal Systems Key Code, President Eleron. Headline, Goodbye Earth, we hardly knew you. Retrieved from the Universal Records Office.
The next day, I was at work replying to my pile of correspondence. A McGrumph who was down in the dumps, a Clandesbrod who was lonely, a Camalosian who had just lost their job but who had written their own employment contract and was tying their boss up in knots over it. When Horace came into my office wheeling an arcade-looking telescreen that was clearly a few decades old, and apparently the only way we could get a broadcastable service now that we no longer had access to the Universal.
If you just switch on the BCBC, the Belobrat Clandesbrod Broadcasting Service now, I think you ought to see this, Eleron. It's the Earth President explaining what we pulled out of the IPO. We might learn something.
Oh no, I groaned as the set shimmered out of its long slumber, revealing Doris Johnson, perched on top of a strange-looking Earth vehicle, shouting about how the IPO had let the whole planet down. Not the Earth again. There they are at the furthest reaches of the known galaxy, like the naughty table at the back of the class at school. Geographically, they should be at the edge of everything, but they're in the centre, always.
Well, we are the youngest of us all. Just think of them as the children of the galaxy,
said Horace.
And that way you might understand them better. I thought you would have had a special affinity, you know, given your upbringing.
He added. No, I replied sadly. The humans are too varied to be one type or another. That's why Earth is so polarised and always has been. My mother, for instance, wouldn't have been chanting the way those humans are. She'd have been watching this and hoping Doris would get run over.
It is time we stopped looking outwards to the stars for solutions and turned inwards instead. And now,
said Doris Johnson, riding on the back of a Brexit Galumphary bus, renewable energy hybrid.
the time has come to vote fairly in our very equal election.
We promised the same benefits as before, trade deals for the food replicator ready, that would be ready to sign from day one, and more money for public services, like the overhead monorail that could go around the Earth 8 nanoseconds quicker than the old one, climate change flood repellent repair kits, and of course, most importantly, our politicians' breakfasts. Do you know, we spend 400 zillion pounds on the IPO every year?
That's actually £40, I shouted at the telly screen. Somewhere around what we spend on male paddle baldness and training Argibrats to ride bicycles. Split between all 100 countries, I might add.
It must be true, though,
said Horace, looking concerned.
I mean, you've written it on the back of the vehicle. I showed it on the world news. We can't exactly pretend we didn't say it later. That would be political suicide. Let's get a light to research it. Let's see if they're right.
I said, I hate to tell you this about Earth history, but I know that lies like this one have happened before. The nerve of it, though. I mean, to tell the Clandesprods in particular to get lost from the back of a bit of technology the Clandesprods gave them, for free.
Just think what we could be spending that money on, namely ourselves, like our health.
This time it was Horace's turn to sputter indignantly.
But the IPO and Mrasianbrat technology have given you free healthcare and access to the universe's medical knowledge so that humans can live around a century longer. I mean, it's literally called the National Habitat System now in our honour.
It's not like the International Peace Organisation actually do anything useful, or indeed have any power to do anything at all, even if we wanted them to, so why are we there?
Outrageous, I shouted, while Horace chimed in with,
Ridiculous.
So don't delay, vote Brexit today, and bring politics down to earth. Let's make the planet great again.
Doris smirked and ruffled her untidy mop of blonde hair as she said this. This is terrible, I said. Awful, horrific, devastating. Why did this have to happen on my watch? Why couldn't those blasted, misguided humans wait? Why?
Humrasianart,
said the habitat teasingly, and seeming annoyingly laid back about it all.
you live in your own head so much, but I think you don't see how the world really works. People change, random stuff happens. Sometimes there isn't really a why. Things just occur. There's nothing you could do to control it, so don't even try.
Horace patted me on my shoulder.
The further up the political ladder you climb, the more you realise just what little control anyone has.
The trouble was, though, it wasn't just my Mrasianart head that hated the idea of a random universe. My human heart did too. Maybe I turned the telly screen off. All I know is I don't think I can take much more of this. We have to change their minds, or who knows who else will follow Earth out of the IPO. My work over for the day, I dejectedly made my way up back to my room, where I began to ponder the matter over. Airglow was a completely different person that night, just the way she had always been once upon a time. Trusting, comforting, hilarious. She positively sparkled, glowing with a brilliance that outshone any star I knew. At a state banquet for all members of staff, she merrily chatted away to everybody, and was still gabbling away 19 to the dozen by the time we made it upstairs. At last, I thought, my first night in my new bed. No more floors or sofas for me. Instead we cuddled and pressed our foreheads together in union, the way we always had on Mars. Eventually, she broke the silence. I've been thinking.
Remember the first time we talked, Eleron? I wondered if the person was shouting in my head. You both looked like me and didn't look like anyone I'd ever seen before.
I certainly do, I said. That was really early days of my telepathy, and I couldn't trace where you were at all. I never realised you'd been right under my nose on Mars all that time, until we were in that space shuttle being deported. I remember saying to my Mrasianart mother, I'm going to marry that being in my head. It's a good job we weren't on Earth. They would have carted me off to the doctors. I'm so glad you were there, I said. All that misery of losing my father and feeling like half the universe was out to kill me. I really needed to laugh, and you really taught me how. I don't know if I would have recovered from it if not for you. I never properly said thank you. Aiglo giggled.
Don't be silly. You say it all the time. You say thank you like it was going out of fashion. You even said it to the post-Mrasianart every morning at home, just for doing his job.
Well, somebody has to. It's a rotten job. I mean it, though, I said, making the most of this sudden change in the character. Deeply, deeper than anything I've ever said. Thank you. Bless you.
What for?
Everything. You gave my life a meaning for so long when I thought I was just going to wither away and die. You made me feel less alone in a world where I didn't look like anyone. To find someone else who looked different, even if he didn't look like me, meant everything. You made me feel as special as a Belobrat, as wanted as a Clandesprod, as big as a Dewsbury giant. Eglo giggled her cute laugh and flashed me her smile, but always made me feel like I was on Ziggurat Free on Fast Forward, with all 3 suns coming out at once.
What about you? This scrawny creature with all these big ideas. You were always on a separate level to the rest of us. I really didn't understand why you'd even talk to me. Sometimes I still don't.
We shared some good times, didn't we? I said, leaning back to join her on her enormous Agrosian sofa she'd imported in specially.
Oh yes, Lady. Do you remember all of them? Of course, silly. I was there after all, I said. 3 ceremonies in Mrasianbrat, human and Belobrat, to cater for all sides of our families. But one day I was head-wedded into an astral plane, given away down an aisle, and delivered a special lecture on why I was the world's greatest bride and half of the world's greatest marriage. You were lucky to have me.
I remember. You looked cute all in white, and all in turquoise, and in roulette and orange stripes. What a great day that was. I still say it isn't the Earth custom to use microwavable sticky rice though. I'm still finding it on my clothes now. Eglo purred.
And there are many more to come. I mean, look at us now, the Intergalactic President.
Well, I said embarrassed, the Intergalactic Peace President. It's not quite the same thing. I'm only in charge of peace. If planets start a war, then they're on their own.
That still counts,
She said.
That counts for a lot. My clever husband. You know, you're the best person at this job. No one else could have done it better. Not even me.
Suddenly I began to feel a lot better about everything and went to sleep. Yes, in a bed at last, with Eglo gently ruffling my hair. It was all going to be sorted. We were going to be happy after all, just when I'd given up hope. Earth was going to get their act together. I was going to make them. The other worlds would rally around them. I would make them. And everything was going to be brilliant between me and Eglo. Strange how Eglo had the power to make me feel on top of the world. Any world. Even now.
Start Universal Entry AD 544 Entry 69477. Mars Universal Systems Key Code Resident Eleron. Headline: Eglo's article, A Few Faults. Retrieved from the Universal Records Office.
Horace took me to one side just as I was about to walk off and see my wife.
A heads up, Eleron. There's been an article about Eglo in today's Times Chronicle, all based on the interview she gave to Lawrence. It's rather a nice piece, for the most part. Basically, it's about how such a decrepit, shambolic Mrasianart as you ever ended up with somebody gorgeous and lovely as her. If there are some comments along with it she might not like, mostly out of Aaron being one of the Belobrats who was corrupted during Albert Fear's discredited regime on Mars.
He handed me the article. Oh dear, I said. What a day for media interviews. This isn't like my article at all. I tried to be so positive and universal in mine, and this is so...
Indeed.
Nodded Horace.
I think Eglo was rather taken advantage of when she sent that interview to the international press herself, without anyone seeing, even Lawrence. She said to me earlier that she thought she'd be able to write the article herself, but she seems to have lost control over what we're printing.
Let's hope so, I said, as the alternative is to think that she wanted to let everything in here out into the open. That would be awful.
You might not be all that keen on some of the comments she made about you too, sir.
Horace continued. So I see, I replied, staring at the article in horror.
The Clandesprod Chronicle, news that's out of this world. Eglo, or Miss Intergalactic President as she became known last week, is a sometimes controversial figure. Frequently thought, often impetuous, always the loudest figure in the room, but seemingly never in control of her emotions. She's one of those hybrid species, full of contradiction, that's hard to know, but easy to love. So it was with some trepidation that I rang her up for an interview, one that was full of huge revelations about the IPO, its security system, its early teething problems, and its staff, but mostly about her husband Eleron.
Keep this between ourselves.
She whispered early on in our interview.
but I'm really running the IPO, and all our successes are down to me. While Eleron is the boss of the universe, he certainly isn't the boss of me. I have a free hand choosing his clothes and his decor. Sometimes I wonder if he'd even be able to do anything without me there to hold his wing.
Continued on page 176/3/Apple CTR.
I read to the end. Has she seen it? I asked worriedly, concerned that the strong rapport we built up between us was about to crash around my ears.
Not that I know of, but even if she has, I'm sure it's all fine. But we thought you ought to know, because, you know.
Horace flashed me a concerned smile that chilled my soul. I sighed, thanked him, and braced myself to walk to our room and open the door. I was sure it would be fine, though. After all, Agro had been in a lovely mood that morning. On turning the door handle, though, the thrown bars just missed my head and showed me how wide of a mark I was.
How dare you? This is all your fault. You made me do it. You're positively the worst person for this job.
I'd never seen Agro like this before. My beautiful bride, who when I first met her had never had a hair out of place, who had never heard a reverse salula bird, had turned into a raging dishevelled monster who was lunging at me as if ready to claw out my eyes. I felt my shoulders slump as I let her rave on, shout and stamp and scream, all the while hoping that the rage would wear itself out.
I'm the best talker thingamajiggy that ever there was. I had several brilliant points to make in my speech, but somehow I missed them. I'm going to try a second time and go Intergalactic this time, then let's see if you disappoint me. It's all your fault. You should have made sure she declined as strong as only asking me questions to make me look good. It's your job to make me look good. Why can't you be like that nice Belobrat? He's so polite and helpful and gentle Mrasianbrat and presidential, and you're just Eleron.
I snorted. Polite? Him? I wouldn't trust him alone with his own grandmother. You ought to hear some of the things he says to me.
Then maybe they need saying,
said Aglo, with more ice than there was in the corner of the room, which still hadn't been finished yet. The Habitat builders said they were rushing to get the job finished and would be there by next year. Maybe. I tried to take a break from the way the conversation was headed and tried again. Mrasianbrat, honey, I'm sorry, I never meant things to be this hard for you. I really didn't know this place had been so unfit for purpose, or I would never have brought you here. I would never have put myself up for being president. I knew it would be hard, but this is impossible. I wish things could be like they were on Mars, when we were the planet's golden couple. Here I feel more like the village idiot. Aglo thought to herself.
You're right, this isn't the life I deserved, nor expected when we decided you'd run. I didn't know saving the world would be savage and backward. I thought it would all be fine dining, polite conversation, and getting my picture in all the papers. Not wonky food replicators, manky aliens, and being stuck in the middle of a cold, dead world. I still don't understand why it isn't. I should have been the president, not you. I'm far better suited to all things political, particularly diplomacy, which you don't know how to do properly at all. You're the boss, Eleron. Fix it now, or I start throwing things.
I can't, I said truthfully. Only the person who said those things can take them back.
But someone else could,
was all she said. Not knowing what else to say, I stared glumly at her as Aglo went to leave the room.
I don't know why I ever married you,
she said under her breath.
It certainly was not love. Maybe it was pity.
I winced as she slammed the wall with such force a whole new snowdrift broke in from inside, and the mirror fell over and smashed into hundreds of tiny pieces. Not unlike my heart, I thought as I swept it up. Finally exhausted, she slumped at last into my arms, and her old features grew back on her face again, replacing the ghosts that had once been there.
I may have done something very bad. How can you love me?
She asked me timidly, genuine tears in her eyes this time.
I'm just insecure. I don't know how to do this job, and everyone else here does that so well.
It's easy, I replied, the thoughts of all the mean things she'd said about me fading. I just do. Alone is lonely, remember? We spent the rest of the night like that, holding each other tight, as if trying so hard not to let each other go.
Decretion Times. The Decreeta Times, Monday, September 1st, 2081. First Lady. Last word on President Eleron. Today, in the second extract from our Meet the Team's newsletter, is Paternal First Lady Aglo, who discusses her husband's triumphant political campaign that brought him to the highest office in the universe, her views on living in the IPO, and her hidden talents.
Welcome to the Decreeta Daily, Aglo, the new newspaper from the International Peace Headquarters. Are you having a peaceful day?
Peaceful? On this planet? You should rinse your eyes and ears out, trying to spread the joke's not funny. Or maybe you haven't noticed the chaos around you. There's a snowdrift in my bedroom. The food replicators are on the blink. My bags still haven't been brought in from the hall yet. A lot of human cleaners still aren't here, so everything is a mess. Things were never this sloppy, even on Mars, and I thought we were supposed to be the best of the best here.
I'm sorry to hear that, Aglo. Do remember that this newsletter goes out live to all the planet.
What on Mars do I care about that? I'm not a politician. I'm a politician's wife. The public rely on me to tell the truth, and the truth is this planet stinks, and so do most of the people on it. Take a shower sometime. Well, that means you have the dance.
Let's talk about happier things. At what point did you know your husband was about to win the election?
I'm still amazed by that, to be honest. I mean, between you and me, he's such a loser. I wish I'd put myself forward. In fact, I didn't even vote for him.
Wait, you didn't vote for your own husband?
No. I think things were perfectly fine under the old system, and we should have stuck with the Belobrat. The universe doesn't need tinkering with. It's busybodies like Eleron who give peace a bad name. You can quote me on that. Eleron won't actually read this, will he?
Well, I won't show him, but I won't stop other planets around the universe picking up on the news story, I'm afraid.
So you don't care.
Hey, Claire, you mentioned the fact that you should have run for re-election. What makes you think you could have won? Tell us about any talents you keep hidden.
Oh, there are so many things that make me such a suitable candidate for being president. I could juggle with all 6 wings while gargling with Jenny. I can balance an algebra on my head, and I'm working on the best war collars you've ever seen in your life. It's amazing. All these things give me more qualifications than 90% of the aliens here, and that's a fact. Peace is easy. Try juggling with Jenny. That's difficult. My work always takes intense concentration. In fact, hurry up, Bozo. I've got more work to do on it. So last question, please.
Thank you for your time, First Lady. What's your favourite algebra?
You keep designing one that fits in your handbag.
First Lady, thank you. My words are a gift. Treasure them and use them wisely. If you study them, then maybe one day everyone reading this could be as fabulous as me. Remember, you can follow my social media at poutyarmwaverbeauty.com, where I am the universe's most brilliant influencer, trying goods and telling you why you should buy them to look like me. Have a nice day now.